Hi, this is Marsha.
And this is Kelly.
We are the Two Ewes of Two Ewes Fiber Adventures. Thanks for stopping by.
You'll hear about knitting, spinning, dyeing, crocheting, and just about anything else we can think of as a way to play with string.
We blog and post show notes at twoewesfiberadventures.com.
And we invite you to join our Two Ewes Fiber Adventures group on Ravelry. I'm 100 Projects.
And I am betterinmotion.
We're both on Instagram and Ravelry, and we look forward to meeting you there.
Enjoy the episode. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, Marsha. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good. I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
So, Marsha, what knitwear are you wearing today?
Not a stitch.
Not a stitch of knitwear.
No.
Well, now, that actually makes sense because what season are we in here in the Northern Hemisphere?
High summer.
Yes. And
but not where you are, I take it, based on this question.
Yes, and I'm not complaining. I'm just providing information. But I am currently wearing, although probably some of it will come off.
Wait a minute. Let me get a pen. I have to write this down.
So okay, I'm currently wearing, from head to toe, I'm currently wearing my Ricky hat.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wearing the Habitat sweater that I crocheted. And I'm wearing hand knit socks.
Kelly, you need to book a flight ASAP to
yes.
get here to Seattle.
And I heard that there's, all this heat going on all around the country. And I feel bad for everyone who is, going through all of the heat and the fires and then they're, flooding. I hope that all of our listeners in Germany are okay. So I don't want to complain about my lot in life. But let me just provide you with some information. Anybody who's suffering from heat should come to Monterey County because in the last month, I looked up the history. In the last month, we have had 2 days above 70 degrees.
Oh, my goodness.
And guess how high we got in those 2 days above 70 degrees?
71?
Yes, and 72. Oh, my God, it was a heat wave. Yes, so, yeah. We do have some higher temperatures coming next week. We get one. But by the time it gets here, the prediction of these high temperatures almost always goes down by about 4 or 5 degrees. Mm-hmm. So we have 80 predicted for Tuesday of next week. So we'll see if that happens. You'll have to check back. Good thing I have knitwear. That's all I have to say.
It was interesting thinking about these changes in the weather because it's happening around the world and some terrible, terrible things are happening. But that heat wave we had here in Seattle, where, 110, there's been many effects of it. I mean, people died. That's terrible. But I was listening to our local NPR station, and they were saying that over 50 people have become ill by eating shellfish because it got so hot. There's a bacteria that forms in shellfish in hot weather. And so you people have been getting sick because the temperature is so high. They also lost a lot of oysters and other shellfish because they literally cooked in their shells because it was so hot.
Oh, my gosh.
So it's really that heat wave we had is going to have a real impact on food production here in the Pacific Northwest, just those few days.
Wow. Yeah.
Really interesting, the impact that...
Well, not just the shellfish. I know when we have had high temperatures here, they typically will come in September, sometimes even as late as October. But... when we get those high temperatures in September, we've had apples on the trees, and they're like applesauce. I mean, if you don't have the apples off the tree by that time, after those couple days of, high 90s or mid 90s, those apples are terrible. So I can imagine the impact that it's had.
Well, and I wonder if this cool weather you're having is going to have an impact on production because you live in an agricultural community, right? And they're kind of cool weather crops.
Yeah.
But this is awfully cool for them. So
we grow a lot of strawberries here. Lettuce is not having any problem. There are more and more berry fields, regular berries, and I don't know if the lack of heat has affected them at all. We have an apricot tree and a plum tree, and the apricots are just now starting to get ripe, which I think is really late for apricots. I don't know because this tree hasn't produced very well in the past, so I don't know what its typical timing is like, but I seem to remember apricots being a more early summer fruit when I was a kid. So and we had an apricot tree when I was growing up. It's probably not super abnormal, honestly, for us to have this kind of weather here in Salinas. I mean, it's not, I don't think it's normal, but I don't think it's super abnormal if I went back and looked at the history. I mean, I remember when I first moved here, I didn't take off a sweatshirt all summer long. I was freezing to death all the time. And that's kind of how I feel this year. And maybe I just like to complain. Well, and the house would be warmer if I closed the windows, but I have to have open windows in the summer. And that's dumb because it's not warm outside. But that's just the way it is. In summer, you open the windows and sleep with the windows open. So anyway.
Yeah. Okay. This leads me to something, Kelly. Because we are we complaining?
No.
A little bit.
I'm not complaining.
No, we're not complaining. Okay. Just a tad. Anyway, so I have something to I have something to say. So the last episode, I was walking Enzo and listening to the episode, and about halfway through the beginning, before we got to any fiber stuff, I texted you, and my text was, "Oh my gosh, shut up about your basement." And I don't remember now what your response was. But anyway, I went back and it was like 10 minutes, Kelly, that I talked about my basement. And I was walking along and I thought, my thought was first like, oh my goodness, shut up about that basement. Nobody cares. And my second thought was, you need to get out of that basement and get out. So
get a life, Marsha.
Get a life. And so I'm here to announce this is the last time I'm going to talk about my basement because it's not healthy. And I got out of my basement and I went this Tuesday of this week, because this is Friday that we're recording. This Tuesday, I went up to Index, Washington. And for people who are out of state, or that's a small former mining town up on Highway 2. It's on the way to Stevens Pass, which is, big mountain pass.
And north of you, right?
North of me, yeah. And the reason I went up there is Ben, my son, is working up there on and off during the summer. He met, I should back up and just say, Index was originally a mining town. That's how it started. But now it's become a huge destination for climbers. And apparently it's world renowned, this area for climbing. They have great rock. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just quoting Ben because I'm not a climber.
What makes a great rock? As opposed
what makes
to
a great rock. Yes. So anyway, he goes up there and climbs, and there's a guy who lives here in Seattle who goes up there all the time and climbs, a guy named Richard apparently, and he bought a house up there, a small cabin, and so Ben has been going up and helping him fix it up, make it sort of, it's kind of rough. And so he's been helping him. And so he goes up there for about 5 days at a time and then comes back. So I thought a nice outing would be to go see Ben in Index and do a hike. So I went up on Tuesday, finally found Ben. That was kind of, do you want to hear the story about how I found Ben? Because he said to me, Index is really small. I have no idea what the population is. Tiny, tiny town. And there's like 2 streets. You come into town, you can go left or you can go right. And so he says, when you come into town, you go left and you just go down to the, keep going down the road and you'll see the house. I go into town, I go left. I can't find the house. I'm driving all the way almost to the end of the road. I'm now getting into Forest Service land. I go back, that can't be right. I go check again. So I go up and down this road about 3 times trying to find him. And I finally gave up and thought, I'm just going to go walk the dog around the town and check it out. And then I'm going to go do my hike. And I was just getting ready to leave when I get a text from him because there's very poor, there's no real cell service there. It's very hit or miss. I get a text like, you'll see the house. He said, I'm glad you're coming. You'll see the house. It has a whole bunch of free stuff out on the road. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll go down this highway, go left down this highway, which I did. And I finally see some free stuff by the side of the road, but it looks like it's been there for a long time because there's like weeds kind of growing through it. And I don't see his car at that house, but I see there's like a driveway and kind of a long like alley kind of thing. And so I decided to go down that. Maybe the house is down that road. And I go down this little driveway and I see a guy working on a house or a garage or something. And I just get out and I said, "Are you Richard?" And he said, "No, I'm not." And I said, "Oh," I said, "Well, do you have a minute to hear my story?" Oh, no. And he's kind and he said, "Yeah, I have a minute to hear your story." And so I said, "Well, my son is up here working for a guy named Richard from Seattle who bought a house." And I give a little story because there's a little story about how he got the house and who used to live in the house and how they got that person out of the house and everything. Is, "Oh, I know that house."
Oh my gosh.
Because it's a tiny town.
Yeah.
Anyway, you're probably ahead of me in this story, is that when you come into town, you turn right, not left. Right.
Oh my gosh.
It's the details, right?
Yes.
So I go
The
back
other
and I say,
left.
"Well, I know." Yeah. So anyway, because I said to him, "Well, it's a small enough town. I figured somebody would know the story." And he said, "Oh yeah, I know the story." So that was really funny. Anyway, I went back, went the correct direction, found Ben immediately, saw the house. We chatted for a little bit, and then I went on my hike. So I did do a hike. So that was really
good.
nice. So this is the point of my story is, what's the phrase? Oh, the devil's in the details?
Yes.
Is that the phrase?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you got out of the basement, Marsha.
Yeah, so I got out
It sounds
of the
like you had a
basement.
nice little outing.
Yeah, it was really nice. And it's beautiful up there. Really, really beautiful. So that's the last time that word is going to cross my lips in this podcast.
All right. Good to know.
Let's see if I can do it now.
Oh, funny.
Anyway.
All right. Well,
okay.
Since you aren't going to talk about the thing that will not be named, what about your projects?
Well, not a huge amount to report. I've been spinning. So I have, I'm almost done with a second bobbin of the brown for that brown and green that I'm making.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And so I have one more bobbin I need to spin, and then I can ply that together. So I work on that in the afternoons, sit out on my deck and spin for a little bit. And so I'm making progress on it, but I'm not working on it exclusively. Mm-hmm. And then I do have progress to report, though, on the Atlas pullover that I'm making for my brother. And I have knit the body. Keep in mind, though, I've not done the ribbing yet because I did a provisional cast on. But I've knit up to the armholes and then set that aside. I did wash it, though, and block it because, as you know, what we talked about the last episode, it looked like a holiday wreath, like this big sausage tube kind of. So I did wash and block it, and I can now, it's laying flat. So it'll be much easier to measure. And then I did a provisional cast on for the first sleeve, and I'm almost done with the first sleeve. I have about 10, let me look at my pattern. I have about 6 more rows. And then I will set the sleeve aside and start the second sleeve. So it's going pretty quickly. I think because it's on size 7 needles.
Mm-hmm.
I find it's not really. Maybe it's because I'm normally working on 3s to 5, somewhere around, or socks are on 1s.
Yeah.
I think. I find it's a little more challenging to knit with. It's like I've heard this before. Sometimes with larger needles and thicker yarn, this is a worsted weight yarn.
Right.
It's a little harder on, and there's something about this yarn too. It's a little hard to knit with in the sense that it doesn't really slide along the needles very well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting.
And you have metal needles.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's much better. I'm doing, okay, Kelly, I'm drawing a complete blank. What's the technique called where you have the long circular needle? Magic loop.
Oh
my God. How can I not remember that? Magic loop. I'm doing that. And that's pretty easy. The body I was kind of struggling with it. And I finally put it on a longer cable and it seemed easier. Having the longer cable for some reason, they seem like they slid better along the needles. I don't know why that would be.
Well, maybe because they're just not so tight. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It was interesting too. This is, I don't think I mentioned this in the other episodes I've mentioned the name of the yarn. It's this Navia tradition. Mm-hmm. But it's from the Faroe Islands.
Oh.
Which I had forgotten. And when I looked at the label later on, I realized that. And when I washed it, it kind of bloomed. It's still a woolly wool. Mm-hmm. You definitely would want to wear this over like a flannel shirt or something. Mm-hmm. But it feels a little softer having been washed. A lot of dye came out of this yarn too. This is a bright green, and the water was almost the color of the yarn. Really, really.
Wow.
It lost a lot of the dye.
Didn't fade. It just had excess dye in it.
It had excess dye in it, yeah. Which might affect the feel of the yarn, having that excess dye in there. So it feels different. It's never going to, it's softer. It's never going to be a soft yarn at all. Right. You're always going to have to wear a shirt, under this, but, and it kind of bloomed.
Nice.
It's very terry kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really nice yarn. And I think it's going to be super durable too.
You'll have to put a picture in your project page, because I'm looking at your project page right now and you just have the wreath.
I have the wreath, yes.
You'll need to take some more pictures now that it's been blocked and flattened so you can actually see it's a sweater.
Yeah, I'll do that, and I'll put the sleeve in there too. Mm-hmm. I did think Mark and I were talking about the sweater, and I said, this sweater is going to be the kind of sweater that you wear to the beach. You wear it when you work in the garden. Yeah. This is going to be a working sweater. Mm-hmm. Just like, remember the sweater that you made for
my gardening at 90 sweater, yeah.
Yes. And I said to him, you cannot save this sweater for something nice. Mm-hmm. Not, he doesn't need to abuse it, because he never abuses anything, but it's not going to be a fine sweater that you save. It's like, you go out and you chop wood in this sweater. Yeah. Actually, you'd be too hot chopping wood. This is you go sit outside.
You chop wood during Snowmageddon in this sweater.
Yeah. Anyway, this is, it's a working sweater is what it's going to be, I think. Yeah.
Nice. So, that'll be really nice.
Anyway.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
So that's all I really have to report. I've not picked up my socks. Okay. I've not picked up my simple shawl at all. So nothing to report on those.
All right. I had thought the last time we recorded that I would get the blanket finished, the phase flower blanket, that Persian tile blanket, by the next episode, because I wanted to be able to talk about it. But I did not. I've been screaming along on my other project. So the blanket is just still sitting with not very much left to do in terms of sewing it together, but then quite a bit of edging to do. But none of that happened, so I probably shouldn't even be talking about it. But what I have worked a lot on, is the sweater that I'm making out of handspun. It's the pattern for that sweater is called Dark Green Forest, and it's by Christina Kerber-Reith, or Reith, I think is the way it's pronounced. And it has that square, what did you call it? Sailor collar, which I think is the right way to describe it. Saddle shoulders with the cable. Anyway, I am all the way down to the pockets. In fact, right now I'm working on it. I'm on the third of the honeycomb cables that goes down the pocket. So I think I have maybe 2, 4, 6. I maybe have about 6 or 8 more rows to go before the pockets are finished.
Wow.
I know. Yeah. I'm excited about how fast it's going. And so then once I finish the pockets, it's top down. So once I finish the pocket, or, the body down to the bottom of the pockets, I think there's no ribbing at the bottom. I should have looked. Let me just check here.
Yes,
there's the regular, the ribbing on the front band. Oh yeah, there is a ribbing at the bottom of this sweater. So the pocket cables open up into a ribbing. So that's all that will be left. Once I finish the pockets, all that will be left is the ribbing on this sweater. And then, of course, finishing the sleeves.
So I guess I'm not understanding. Are the pockets knit separately and attached to the front of the front side of the sweater, or is that pocket the front side and there's a piece in the back?
Yeah, I'll have to go in the back and make the back part of the pocket.
Oh, okay.
So you open up a slit, and okay, I do have to.
I've never made pockets before. So
I haven't either. Well, no, that's not true. I made pockets in the Orca's Run sweater. That's the only sweater that I put pockets in, but I did make pockets there. I do have to talk about something odd in this pattern. Not bad, just it cracks me up. I don't understand it. You do the collar, done with the collar, the yoke, the yoke of the sweater. You're into the body. So you've divided for the sleeves, separated the body and the sleeves, and then you get into the step that's called finish the body, step 6. So you do like 3.5 inches under the after the underarm, after you split. And then it says, set this aside and prepare the pocket edgings. And I thought, well, that's weird because the pockets aren't until you get to the bottom of the sweater. So I was confused about why you would do that. And I read it and I don't think I have to set this aside now and do the pocket edgings. So when I got to the place where I needed to put in the pockets, I went to do the pocket edgings. The pocket edgings are literally 4 rows of ribbing that you then attach. You split for the pocket. And then on the, you put some of the stitches at the top of the pocket hole on waste yarn. And then the bottom of the pocket hole, you attach this ribbing so that the ribbing kind of pokes up above where the hole of the pocket will be. Why would you set aside your sweater at the armholes, do 4 rows of ribbing twice, set them aside? I mean, if you're me, something that small could actually get lost doing it so early. I don't understand it.
Because you don't need it for, how
for
many
another
inches?
12 inches.
Yeah.
Or 10 inches at least.
I have a theory.
Okay.
Maybe it's when you're doing socks, you do the ribbing and you do top down, you do the ribbing, you do the ankle, the length of thing. And then just as you're getting bored and sick of that, you start doing the heel flap.
Oh, maybe.
And then when you get tired of all that detail of heel flap, turning the heel, the gusset, you get to go back to that mindless stuff. Maybe it's to give you a break.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. My original thought was that it was to prevent you from have you do it early so that you wouldn't just skip the pockets because you were afraid you wouldn't have enough yarn.
Oh.
But there were only 4 rows. I mean, this would not even get you 4 little rows. This wouldn't even get you, this much yarn wouldn't even get you 1 round. Right. It wouldn't even get you all the way around the sweater.
Yeah.
4 little tiny rows
Maybe
of pockets.
Maybe it's a joke.
Maybe
the pattern designer thinks, you know what? I'm going to mess with them.
Yeah. She's messing with my mind because literally when you get to the body, you work 3 1/4 inches like this. And this is for all sizes. You work 3 1/4 inches after the armhole, after separating. That's step 6A in finish the body. And step 6B is prepare pocket edgings. And then you go to step 6C, and that's when you do your shaping and knit for rows and rows and rows and rows and rows and rows and rows before you get to the pockets. It's a mystery. But I did them when I needed them, put them on. They look great. Of course, I always like everything I knit, right? It all looks great. So I'm really happy with this. I'm really happy with the progress. It's going really fast. Seems like it's going really fast. So yeah, I'm loving this handspun sweater. It's going to be another one of those sweaters, I think, that gets a lot of wear. The only other thing I've been working on. Oh, let me just say a little bit about this this wool. I put some information in the show notes about the 2 different sheep breeds that I'm working with. Since it is the summer spin-in, I put some information. But this is CVM, and that stands for California Variegated Mutant, which is the multicolored version of the Rommeldale. Remember the judge, Mark Eidman? I think his first name was Mark Eidman, who judged.
One that passed away?
The one who passed away.
Yeah.
It was his father who discovered some colored lambs that were appearing in his Rommeldale flock. And instead of culling them, they actually bred them for the color. And so that's where the California Variegated Mutant comes from. And I have a CVM fleece in the garage. It's darker than this one. It's more of a dark gray. This one was more of a beige that I overdyed. But I really like it. It's not, they call it a fine wool. I wouldn't say it's like a super fine, at least not this one. It's not a super fine wool. It's a little more fine than like a Corriedale. It's going to be a nice sweater. And I like CVM to spin. And then the other thing that I have been spinning is Oxford. And I have a little bit of information about the Oxford sheep also. They were imported into the U.S. in the 1840s. And it says that it's one of the largest breeds of sheep, only surpassed by the Lincoln. Although this fleece was quite small. I think it was quite small. It was probably about 5 or 6 pounds.
Wow.
And that's, when I've bought a Lincoln fleece, they've been bigger than that. So skirted heavily, or maybe a smaller or younger Oxford sheep. It didn't say lamb, but it was in the market class, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, the staple length is 1 to 2 inches, which is true. That's what I'm finding in this fleece that I have. So it's one of the Livestock Conservancy breeds, as well as the CVM is also a Livestock Conservancy breed. So, but I've been spinning that. I'm on my 3rd bobbin. I decided to spin all my singles first and then ply them, which I hardly ever do. But I still was kind of undecided. Remember I talked last time about how the 3-ply just seemed too tight? That's kind of silly because I can just ply it more loosely. Right. That's not a characteristic of 3-ply so much as it is a characteristic of my spinning. So I'm still debating whether I'll make a 2-ply or a 3-ply with this. But if I do a 3-ply, I want to experiment and, ply it loosely. I don't want to ply this really, really tight. I want it to be kind of a fluffy yarn. So I have enough bobbins, I think, that I can just spin spin maybe not the rest of this, but I can at least spin 4 bobbins, and then I can either ply 3 of them together, or I can ply them 2 and 2. So I think that's what I'm planning to do, is spin 4 bobbins and then decide whether I'm going to make a 2-ply or a 3-ply. So yeah, I'm making good progress on that spinning. It's a little bit boring because it's a white fleece. I think I'll dye the yarn when I'm done. Well, that's it for my projects, Marsha. I know that you aren't going to talk about a certain part of your house, but you were doing some cleaning out, and I have a question about that. So you posted on Instagram that you were taking 2 big garbage bags full of yarn to de-stash at the Goodwill. And I just thought it would be interesting to hear, like, how did you decide what you were going to get rid of?
Well, it actually was pretty easy. I'll tell you what I got rid of. It was spirit yarn that I got from the Goodwill.
Okay.
In those days when I would go to the Goodwill. I have used some of it. Like, for example, I remember I was getting all kinds of worsted weight yarn for that Afghan that I made, that I used my dad's old sweater that I took apart and combined it with other yarn.
Yeah.
So a lot of that worsted weight Goodwill yarn went into that.
Yeah. Wasn't that blanket like 5 pounds or something? I remember you weighed
it. Yeah, it was 5. Because I went.
You went to the pet store or the vet. Yeah.
I went to the vet to use their scale because my scale wouldn't hold it. It wasn't big. The scale, my bathroom scale wasn't big enough to hold it. But and then I still kept a lot of that worsted weight yarn that I got at the Goodwill because my plan was to make an Afghan for my brother. And I'm still determined to do it. If I don't do it in the next couple of years, then I'm going to have to just get rid of that yarn.
Okay.
But, and then a lot of it came from the de-stash room. So if Gail and Charlene and Barb and Tracy are listening to this, do you remember the first year we went to the Knockers Retreat and I could not believe people were giving away yarn for free. I could not believe it. And I was like going in there and I was like feeling guilty that I was taking it, and they're all laughing at us because I was sneaking in there.
Every time Marsha left the room, every time you couldn't see Marsha, it was like, oh, where's Marsha? Oh, I bet she's in the de-stash room.
Well, here's my takeaway. There's a reason why all that yarn was at the Goodwill, and there's a reason why it was all in the de-stash room. But I was just, I was so excited, and I had all these possibilities of things I was going to make, and how could anybody possibly get rid of that? It's so wonderful. And I have used a lot of it. I have to say, I did use a lot of that yarn.
Yeah.
And there's some things but I thought, I've not used it in how many years? And I have so much yarn that I purchased at Stitches and Yarn Crawls and 2 trips to Scotland and a trip to Iceland. And I'd rather be knitting with that yarn that I've invested money in, and it's beautiful yarn. And so I thought it was pretty easy decision to make, to decide what to get rid of. I did think it was funny, people's reactions to the Instagram post about what I was getting rid of. Because the one person's comment was, "Is it wrong that I'm trying to read the labels?" That's so funny. And somebody also wanted to know what Goodwill I was dropping it off at, and then it was interesting on, because I have it set up when I post something on Instagram, it posts to Facebook.
Oh, okay.
And there's one woman that commented that I can't remember how she worded it, but basically, that I've reached that age. Because I think my comment in my post was, I was joking. I truly was joking when I said this, is I won't live long enough to knit all that yarn. She really thought, like, in her response was, "Oh, you've reached that age where," and that I'm preparing for my death by clearing out my house so that my heirs won't have to deal with it. And it's like, okay, that is not what I was thinking at all. That is not at all what I was thinking. I don't consider myself to be that age. Right. I just am trying to lighten my load, and somebody else should have it.
Yeah. Who is this person? A friend would not consider you to be old.
Anyway, so that was amusing to me, that comment, because that's not how I see it. And I was really funny, yeah. I guess you have to be careful. What I think is funny is not what other people
right.
Or some people think when I say things I think are funny, they take it literally, like I'm preparing for my death.
Right. Well, thinking about the feeling of being so excited about all the yarn at the D-Stash room at the Knockers Retreat, and how there's a reason some things are in D-Stash. I remember when I was doing the Master Gardener class, and they started having cutting giveaways and seed giveaways, and they started encouraging us to bring things that we were, bring cuttings. And so they'll put stuff out in the patio, and oh my gosh, it was like you had to be careful not to get elbowed in the in the ribs or knocked aside when all these gardeners would just like practically make a run for the patio. And I mean, honestly, it looked like a bunch of yard waste.
Yeah.
That's literally what it was people's yard waste. And I was right in there, getting excited and throwing elbows to get my thing that I needed. And then I found out about this cutting day that they had in Monterey, and I went to that, and I got some of that, some of the stuff that people were giving away. And when you plant it, you realize why they're giving it away. Like, not that they're getting rid of it out of their yard, but the reason that they can give you all these cuttings is that it's super invasive and spreading all over. They have to dig it up every year to get rid of some of it. Like Alstroemeria was one of them that, there were just always somebody bringing Alstroemeria and anyway, I don't have to go into all the detail.
I have that in my alley. I have that Alstroemeria in the alley, and
it just takes over,
Yeah, it takes over, yeah.
And which is good in some settings, but it's just kind of funny that it's the same, free plants, destashing plants cause the same sort of frenzy.
And the other thing I was going to say about the Knockers Retreat, and that was the first time I experienced that people are just giving this yarn away, but many of the attendees didn't even go in the room.
Right.
Or they went in the room to put their stuff there, and they never went in, or they just go in there, casually look. And I really, but now I understand they were able to do it because they had so much at home that they could exercise the restraint, probably because they had so much,
and maybe had done the same kind of clearing,
done the same thing,
you're just doing, yeah.
So I'm sure at the time, people were like, "Oh yes, she will learn."
Right.
Give her a few years and she will learn.
Yeah. Everybody's at a little bit different stage in that process. Yeah.
Yeah. But I will say though, I did order plastic boxes. Well, I should say I had all my yarn in these plastic
like drawers, right?
Like drawers, like plastic. And I got them at the Goodwill. And when and I had one when my stash got a little bigger, and then I found another one and it got bigger. So they were all from the Goodwill. Anyway, I just pulled all the yarn out, and the stuff that I decided I was going to keep, I just temporarily put it in paper bags, labeled it, and then I ordered plastic bins, and those arrived actually just yesterday. And so last night I started putting my yarn in there, and and then I'm going to be. Because some of the, I will say some of the, one batch, like a sweater quantity's worth of yarn, actually I discovered had some moth damage. So I just threw that in the garbage. And I didn't even give that away. I just threw it in the garbage. And then I have cedar and lavender, which I'm going to put in those bins to protect it somewhat. It'll be much easier to see what I have too, because some of the bins were clear, some of that I had before, and some were not clear. It was in bags. It was just all kind of random. So now it's going to be much more organized, and I can see what I have. Visually being able to see everything every time I go down into that place in the house, because I can't say the word. Oh no, I'll call it the cellar. There we go. If I go down to the cellar, I think it'll be reinforcement. You don't need to buy any more. I really don't need to buy any yarn.
Well,
so I'm going to show up at Knocker.
We'll check back.
Yes, I'm going to show up at Stitches when it happens again, and when Black Sheep happens again. I'm going to show up, but I am really going to try not to buy anything, because I seriously have enough from... and it's a crime to just buy something and put it in your stash and not use it. I need to use it. It's not a crime. That's too harsh.
Right.
It's just... It'd be nice to use it.
If it's a crime... everyone listening to us is a criminal.
That's true. That's too harsh. It's not a crime, but it'd be nice to knit with it, you know? So anyway.
And if you truly aren't going to knit with it ever, and you know you aren't going to ever get to it, then yes, it's time to get rid of it. It's the hope, you know? I mean, that's what all those seed packets and cuttings represented. And that's what yarn in the D-stash room represents, is like hope and possibility. You know, I still have that feeling about some yarn that's been sitting in my stash forever. And like, really, is there still a possibility or a hope that I'm going to use it? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I think that hope, and I think also a lot of it, I was just inspired by a lot of it. Just, you know, I have these ideas about what I was going to do with it. And it'll go to somebody else's idea. So
Right.
Well, and what about you? I see we have a note here about fiber books.
Yeah, the inside studio has been painted. There's a bookcase there now, actually yarn shelving that was put in. It's still not painted, but I've got my stuff on it. But the boxes of stuff that came out of there, I still haven't put away. They're still sitting in the living room. And I was looking at them the other day thinking, okay, I have got to do something with this. And, there's not enough room on the shelf unit to put the books and the yarn. So now I have to make decisions about books. And some of them are not knitting books. And those are going to be hard decisions too to make. But I have a whole box, probably a box and a half maybe, of fiber books. And so I just have to figure out what I'm going to do with them and whether I'm going to de-stash them. What am I going to keep?
Do you look at them?
Some of them, yes. Like I know for sure I have the book. It's old. It's called Socks, Socks, Socks. And it's just a whole bunch of different sock patterns.
Oh, I have that book.
And I've made quite a few pairs of socks out of it. And then I used it a lot before I really was experienced knitting socks to know like how many stitches should I cast on given the the height of the sock or the type of yarn. I'd go and look at the cast-ons for the different socks to know how many stitches I should cast on before I just kind of got to the point where I just know what to cast on. But I think I'll keep that one because I've used it so much, and so there's not just useful information in there and patterns that I might use again or patterns that I might use, but there's memories about my early knitting days connected to that book. So like that book I'll keep. But I bought two really nice hardback books by Nikki Epstein of edgings. So one is called like Knitting on the Edge and the other one is called something else. So there's two different types of edging. I can't remember now. There's like edgings that are part of the garment and edgings that you add to the garment. It's kind of like a stitch dictionary, but of edgings. And they're beautiful books. I've never looked at either one of them past, just like flipping through when I first bought it and then flipping through when I put it in the box to put it away. And will I ever really use that to create an edging on something? Probably not, But then I think, but there's so many really cool things I could do. And then I keep them. So, and they're really pretty books.
And they're so small, and you have a big house.
Oh, they're not small. These books are not small. They're a lot more like coffee table.
They're big, and you have a big house.
Yeah. They're more, they really are like the coffee table. They're an odd size, actually. They don't fit on the bookshelf. They're like legal size length, sideways. Like they're wider than they are tall. So they're an odd shape. They don't fit on the bookcase. So they'll probably end up going. But there's a lot of things kind of in between that spectrum. Yes, I'll definitely keep this. And these books are pretty, but I will never use them.
Yeah.
And so I have to make some decisions there about what I'm going to do with them. So I kind of don't want to even open the boxes. Because I know that the number of books that I can actually keep on that shelf is small. And they've been in boxes for like 2 years, 3 years maybe.
Yeah.
I haven't missed them.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah. And then I have the other books I have a box of dog books, dog training books, dog picture books, dog breed books from, when we had labs and water spaniel and there's just too much emotional connection to all that stuff that I don't really want to think about it, but I clearly don't need those books. They've been in a box for a really long time. And there's been only very few that I've dug into the box to get.
Yeah. Well, in terms of books, I have cookbooks, my cookbooks, and then combined with my mother's cookbooks, and some were duplicates, so I got rid of duplicates, obviously.
And those are possibilities and hopes of what you could cook.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I, but there's, I don't know, the truth is, honestly, there's just certain cookbooks I make stuff out of all the time that I go back to. The rest I don't really look at that much.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times I get inspiration. It's like, oh, I have these ingredients. What can I make out of it? And I just do a little Google search.
Right.
And so I'm actually using the internet a lot more.
Yeah.
But I someday, I'm not ready.
Right.
I'll go through them and get rid of things.
Yeah. But you have a bookcase for them, right? They're all sitting on the shelves. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all in the so-called library.
I knew when I got rid of those shelves that I was going to have to get rid of a lot of books, and I did. But it's going to take me several rounds of destashing to get rid of the number of books that I need to get rid of.
Yeah.
Because there's some emotion attached to them. So,
well, all in good time.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. The closet behind me got cleaned out. I don't know if I was talking about I wanted to do that, but the closet behind me here in the where I record, the dressing room of the other bedroom, we got that cleaned out and I got it put back together. There's a lot of room in there now. I could put the boxes of books in there and not think about them for another 3 or 4 years. And at which time I might be ready to get rid of them. We'll see. So
I just as we're talking about this, I'm just thinking about emotional attachment to books. And I've gotten rid of pretty much all of Ben's books that he had when he was a little kid, when I would read to him. And he had a lot of books because I worked at a bookstore, right? So I would just buy stuff, which I realize now in hindsight, I should have just gotten them from the library. But there were some books that I hung on to because I loved reading them to him so much. And the whole series of books by the author Bill Peet. Do you know him?
That doesn't ring a bell, no.
His last name is P-E-E-T. And he was the author illustrator of these books. And I love the art, the illustrations. I love them. And then the stories were great. Like there was Ella was one of them. And Ella was an elephant from the circus. And she lived there and she was very pampered. And she got a little bit too big for her head and decided to leave, run away from the circus. So she runs away from the circus and she gets captured by a farmer who realizes that this is going to be great to have this elephant. She can work on the farm. And so now she's sent to work on the farm. And it's a story basically, sort of be grateful for what you have because it's not necessarily greener on the other side. Mm-hmm. So there's that story. There's another one that we love to read it was Jennifer and Josephine. And now I can't remember which one it was which, but I think Jennifer was a cat and she lived in this old car.
Oh, I see the illustrations. I went to his website and I'm looking at the illustrations. So cool.
Yeah, anyway, Jennifer and Josephine, and I think Jennifer, as I say, was the cat, and Josephine was the car. And it was like an old Model T. The cat, this is her home, and some salesman comes and buys the car, and they throw some new tires on it, and Josephine is shocked that she's now being driven. This car, because she's been sitting for years in this junkyard, and the cat's distressed and driving crazy, and the salesman is just a horrible person, and he treats Josephine the car terribly. He doesn't realize the cat's in the car, and he crashes the car, and it goes into the river, and so the cat sees a farm, goes to the farm and draws attention. A little girl, the farmer's daughter, goes out and finds the car, tells the dad. The dad comes and gets the car and pulls the car out of the river, saves the car, saves the cat. They're excited to have this cat now, and he's excited to have this car because he couldn't afford a car. So he now fixes the car up, and Josephine, the car, is super happy because she's never driven over 15 miles an hour. I don't know. They were such charming stories.
Mm-hmm.
They were so charming. Anyway, I'm going off on this, telling about these stories about this author, Bill Peet, but I used to read those to Ben all the time. And there was another one, Lyle Crocodile.
Oh, yeah.
Don't remember the author, but Lyle is a crocodile that lives in New York City in a bathtub in some family's apartment. And he's very erudite and is a good conversationalist, and that people invite him to tea parties and cocktail parties and stuff, this crocodile. And we would read those all the time. And so when I moved, I had saved those books to come to the house. And there's bags of books to go to the Goodwill. And of course, you're ahead of me. Mm. Mark took them all to the Goodwill.
Mm-hmm.
All the Bill Peet books are gone, and Lyle Crocodile are gone. And I'm still kind of devastated by it. Now, the reality is, am I ever going to read those books again? Probably not.
And some child is getting to read them.
Yes, exactly.
Which is what books should have. A book that's not being read is sad.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I don't know if books actually feel sadness, but...
I know. Anyway, they were just, but maybe what I should do is just go out and buy a copy of Ella and Jennifer and Josephine, because those were kind of my two favorite from that, those books anyway, from that author anyway.
Well, I'll put the pages in the show notes.
Okay.
Because I was just looking at the pictures while you were talking, and they are really cute. Mm-hmm. Very cute.
And since we're talking about, since I was not planning on making a book recommendation, but that was a recommendation. I've been watching Netflix and working on Mark's sweater, and I watched a documentary the other day, which I just wanted to mention it because I thought it was really interesting. And it's called, people have probably heard of this, but if you haven't, it's called This Changes Everything. And it's a documentary made by the actress Gina Davis. It says here, in 2004, Davis launched the Gina Davis Institute on Gender in Media, which works collaboratively with the entertainment industry to dramatically increase the presence of female characters in media. So this documentary talks about why she started this institute. And then different actresses' experiences, female directors' experiences trying to make it in the film industry, and how most media or a lot of the entertainment that we watch in the United States and around the world is coming out of Hollywood, and how women are portrayed on film, and how, so it's an excellent documentary, and I highly recommend it. It was really good. I will say the one thing that sort of at the end of the film, one of the things they talk about is how difficult it is for women directors to get jobs directing films. And they actually have lists of, when studios are going to make a film, they have lists of directors that they pass around about, who maybe this is who you want to consider first. This is who you would consider second. If none of those are available, way down at the bottom of the list, or these are the people you might want to consider. And one of the women who was the only woman on the list who was way down at the bottom was Catherine Bigelow, who won an Academy Award for The Hurt Locker. So she's an Academy Award winning director, but she's at the bottom of the list, right? Because men are getting these jobs. Anyway, this does not take away from how good the documentary is. But at the end, I'm reading the credits, and do you know who directed the documentary?
A man.
Some guy named Tom. And I was like, I'm sorry, what?
Oh, well, yeah.
Now, that doesn't take away from it really, because it was an excellent series, or a documentary. I recommend it because it really sort of opened your eyes to how women are portrayed in film and in television shows, and how many women who, when they do get a chance, how much money they're making for the industry.
Yeah. Interesting.
But they still selected a man. Not to take away from the man either, because he did a great job, but it was just humorous to me. But anyway, but I'll put a link in there.
Oh, that'd be good.
What else we got going on? Are you going anywhere at all? Or
well, in August, I am going to be at the San Francisco International Pen Show.
Yay!
Yeah,
who knew?
I know. Well, they have a get together, a conference for everything, right? I'm sure that the pen people would be surprised that there's something called stitches.
Yes, right.
So I'm going to go check it out and see what that world is like, and I'll be there on the Saturday. It's in Redwood City, which is actually south of San Francisco. That's actually really nice. It'll be an easier drive to get there. But yeah, we're planning to go and take a look at the pens, and if any of our listeners are also planning to go to the pen show, I'd love to see you. We'll have to.
And I would say, Kelly, pens don't take up very much space in your house.
I know, yeah. But you know what's funny is the sock yarn skein that you buy, the souvenir sock yarn. Apparently, in the pen world, the equivalent of that is ink. I saw an ink cupboard on Instagram yesterday. Like, oh my gosh, that is definitely more ink than you could use in a lifetime. I mean, because every time you put ink in your pen, I don't know, 3 to 5 milliliters, I think. And these, jars of ink are like 20 milliliters, 30 milliliters. Some of them are like 70 milliliters.
Wow.
So definitely more ink than you could use. It's definitely an ink collection as opposed to a stash of ink for use, I think. But yeah, because you can buy a bottle of ink, depending on the ink, you can buy a bottle of ink for, $10. Whereas a pen
cheaper than yarn.
And some of the pens are quite inexpensive. Chinese fountain pens are quite inexpensive. They're pens pens you can get for under $20. But a lot of pens are more expensive than that. And so, yeah, if you can't satisfy your collection urge by buying a pen, you can get a souvenir. You can get a souvenir bottle of ink wherever you go. So anyway, that's on my agenda for August, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Mm-hmm. Be interesting to see another world. So another hobby world.
Mm-hmm.
But my box of pens, my one cigar box that I converted into a pen box, is full. Mm-hmm. And so I'm calling my collection complete.
But I happen to know that you have more than one cigar box.
I do, yes. And
because
actually,
those were my.
Well, and
didn't Mark give those to you?
Mark did, yeah. I have 3 of them. So, but only one of them has been outfitted to hold the pens so far. Yeah, but we did go to dinner with a work friend the other night, and he gave me a Chinese fountain pen that he had. It's like, oh, this is really nice. And he's like, yeah, I think it was about $5. And I'm like, I can't believe you bought this pen for only $5. He's like, why don't you take it? So in full confession, I do have one pen that doesn't fit in the box.
Well,
so I could start a second box, but I will not do that anytime soon. So, but I might find something that I like at the pen show. We'll see.
Yeah.
I'll definitely bring home a souvenir bottle of ink.
So fun. Well, I guess the last thing that we need to talk about, Kelly, is the summer spin-in, just to remind people it's going on. And we just have about a month to go. It ends Labor Day, which is September 6th. We'll have some prizes from 3 Green Sisters, and we'll have more details, but...
Yeah, and I have also some fiber from Sincere Sheep that'll be... I never took a picture of it and put it up on the thread, but I also bought some fiber from Sincere Sheep that'll be up for a prize too.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So keep spinning.
Yes.
All right. We'll have fun at the pen show. Well, I'll talk to you before that.
Yeah, it's not till the end of August. We'll record again.
Yeah. Okay, well, then I will let you go so you can get out there and start spinning.
All right.
All righty. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. To subscribe to the podcast, visit 2ewesfiberadventures.com.
Join us on our adventures on Ravelry and Instagram. I am betterinmotion, and Kelly is 100 Projects.
Until next time, we're the 2 Ewes
doing our part for World Fleece.